Like Black Eyed Peas, man, they was like the fucking Fugees, and they get a lot of shit when they don't. Oh, my fault.
Now
We
we
started the
good.
show.
This is a good start. We started on
Hey,
the Black
welcome,
Eyed
folks.
Peas.
Word, we're gonna get there. Salutations, everybody. Welcome. This is the Perspectives Podcast. We are your hosts. My name is Littyyy Bro Flacko. This is my the other host to my left, right? I
Right.
don't know what this would be. Holden Stephan Roy. Say hi, Holden.
Hi, Holden.
Right. And today we have uh, a guest that's a grant winner from the Vice Versus Foundation and an artist himself. Everybody put your hands together and give a big warm welcome to Randy Mason.
Thank you.
Nah, Randy does a lot of cool stuff from what I peeped on the internet. This guy's like one of them hero dudes that we should all be giving love to. That's like really deserves that love.
Yep.
Yeah,
Many
now I'm
thanks.
pretty sure there's been a lot of high recommendations for this episode. So like I expected, you know what I mean, to get very familiar with you, Randy. So like the way that we usually start the show is that we give like our background origin story, right? Comic book nerds that I am over here. Holden is not a comic book nerd.
I'm
Right. So
affiliated.
like affiliated through me.
Yeah.
Um, right. So we came together with this show because I was like on an album run, and the Littyyy Bros, we were dropping like a project, and our engineer on that first project was an engineer out in Montreal, and like the homie might as well be from like New York City, right? Because he's like wild slick with it. Like he's a typical like New York City engineer, right? Where like if I don't promote anybody that comes and pays for my services, then I'm
Mm-hmm.
not obligated to promote anybody who comes and
Right.
pays for my services, right? So like he doesn't ever like promote anybody, but then he promoted our shit. And that got Holden's attention because Holden's like, hold on, I've been following the homie for a minute, and he doesn't ever promote anybody that he works with. So
Mm-hmm.
he's promoting the homies and with like high praise. I should check this out. He checks it out. He kind of dug some of the stuff that we was doing, and he did an album review for us. And when he did the album review, I left. I'm a YouTube commenter. Like I'm not the guy that doesn't comment, who's like,
Right.
oh, I'm too good to comment on YouTube and shit like that. No, I comment on everything on YouTube. And so like
Or
I commented and I was like, yo, we should do an interview. And he was like, oh, I already had that in mind to ask you. And I was like, well, let's do that then. And so like he interviewed me, and let me tell you something, Randy, this shit felt like fucking therapy, okay? I felt
mm,
like I unloaded fucking years of shit. I'm just like, yo, why have I been doing hip hop and like doing interviews for so many years, and like
mm,
I never got asked like about like my fucking childhood and shit
mm,
like that. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm always asked like, when you fall in love with hip hop, and fucking like, would you be on loving hip hop? Which is just like, oh my god, kill yourself. These are your questions as an interviewer. Anyway, I didn't mean to disrespect any other interviewers. But so the point is, it was a great interview, right? And it set off a great relationship. And then being the typical New Yorker that I am, right? I was like, as soon as you get up on something dope, what do? I gotta put the homies on. So I was
yeah.
like, yo, I had a great interview. This dude is fantastic with what he does. Why don't we do something together? And I'll bring like all my homies to the table and people from like our circle to the table. And so that's what I did. So like here we are. We're like maybe like a year and some change into the show. And it's been great. And we've like learned so much about like so many of our peers. And
Mm,
like that's really what I'm looking forward to here, right? Is like to get to know you, who I've heard about through the homies. Right. So usually Holden has like all these questions that he has in his head all ready to go, but I
right.
like to cut him off and set it off with a good almost 2 years, like Denny said. Uh, um uh I like to set it off with like the what's your origin story, right? So why don't you introduce yourself to the people, like tell them who you are, all your aliases, right? And then tell us where you're from. And then after you tell us where you're from, can you tell us where your parents are from?
Where my parents are from. Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me. It's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be here. I have the utmost respect for the whole EO Dub family and movement and all of the different components. So I'm just super grateful. And your origin story is super official. I love when things work out that way, you know, very organic. You connect, you know what I'm saying? You connect the dots, you meet somebody, you know, their work resonates with you, and then you know, you guys build and create something new out of that. So, you know, props to you guys on almost 2 years. I know that's no easy feat. So props and praise to you guys. So yo, my name is Randy Mason. You know, I'm a hip hop artist and a teaching artist from the Bronx. And you know, I'm a husband. My wife is amazing. She's incredible. She's upstairs right now, you know what I'm saying, keeping the kids, you know, in check. I'm a dad, and we have a whole bunch of amazing kids. We have 6 kids, 5 boys and 1 girl. Let's see. So as I mentioned, I'm from the Bronx. I grew up in the Bronx. My folks, so my dad is African American Jamaican. His mom was born in Jamaica, and he was born in Harlem Hospital. So he's from Harlem Uptown. My dad, and my mom is from Puerto Rico, and then by way of East Harlem. And so, you know, when me and my brothers were born, we were in East Harlem for, you know, back and forth East Harlem and the Bronx, and then eventually kind of settled in the Bronx. But yeah, for me, like, I'm, you know, very passionate about like faith, family, and hip hop. That's kind of like my whole, you know, everything revolves around faith, family, and hip hop. So that's the quick, fast version.
Awesome.
Of Randy.
That's dope.
That
We
is
already this is already I'm already excited. Like, oh, we're interviewing somebody from the Bronx.
I was like,
right up my motherfucking alley. Let me tell you something. I'm from the X2, so you already know how we get down from the Bronx, right? Like, I cheer for everybody and anybody who comes out of the Bronx, and honestly, I cheer for everybody and anybody who comes out of Uptown. Period. So, like, as soon as I see like Harlem, the Heights, Spanish Harlem, I'm like, it's right there. It's right there. We still Uptown, baby. We still Uptown in here.
Uptown.
see,
That's right.
All day.
meanwhile, I am absolutely not from any of that. I'm from Montreal, so it's a whole different experience. A good preface to all of this is when you feel that instinct of, nah, I mean, the answer is probably no, I do not know what you mean. Because chances are that's some shit from New York, and that is very different than what we it's similar, but different than whatever was going on up in Montreal. But with that, I do have a bit of an opening question to get the ball rolling, and we're going to go from the TLDR version into the excessively detailed version. So all of this, it's a bit of a story. I mean, so far it's all been one giant 7-minute build-up, but like, we're going to get into it. And this one, it starts with my girlfriend, and she's washing the dishes one time, and she's got her phone open, and she's playing that Black Eyed Peas song, that I got a feeling. Ooh. She's vibing, she's dancing, she's doing her thing. I look at her, and I have this moment of, when in the fuck did this song become chores music? Right? Because, like, think about it. Run that back to the early 2010 times. People be out in the middle of the night, everybody kind of drunk. This is the highlight song. Even if you were sober in the school's highlight song, everywhere you were in the entire world, highlight song. It's excitement, it's joy. 10 years, 11 years goes by. The song doesn't change at all because it's a song. But we as people, we evolve. We go through the process of aging. And now what was once party music becomes, I wish I was partying while doing chores music, while working out music, while trying to do some of the things in life that maybe are less fun. And I found that to be such an interesting thing to have happen. And it got me just thinking about the passage of time. Like the 20-year-olds, they be out there with whatever they partying to. Maybe it's the Pop Smokes or whatever. And they're not fully aware yet that that's one day the soundtrack of their future chores and gym music. They don't know that when I found out about Pop Smoke, I started washing dishes to Pop Smoke, and that's just kind of how it be. And it's like, with that, it got me thinking about also kind of how interviews and stuff work, and how people talk about the story of artists and musicians. Like, we're all on this journey, but every time you see people talk about it, the starting point seems to be the adolescent era when we form our identity. I started writing raps at this age, or I got into this music at that point. And it's a very important part of the story that needs to always get touched on, but it's definitely not the beginning of any artist story. Like, I'm willing to bet in Harlem or whatever hospital you came out on, there was some music playing, and in that room your little baby self was absorbing it, even if you can't remember it. Like, I know this because, like, I can remember a lot about music from being young. Like, I can remember being like 5 years old in my little apartment in Montreal. And my dad's got all the gray boxes in the room, the radio, the tape deck, the preamp and amp and all that stuff with the wires going everywhere and going out to the speakers around the room for the home-built surround sound experience. And he'd be busting out his like Led Zeppelin tapes and different things like that. At nighttime, though, it was that EDM club music live from the clubs. Always live from the clubs in Montreal, whatever was popping there from that one radio station. And then like my mom's, it was more like love songs and discos and musicals and Disneys and things like that. So it created a whole different ambiance. And I realized all of this stuff I was listening to for years and years and years before I had any control really over what it was that I was consuming. So to get the party started, Mr. Randy Mason, can you run us all the way back to the youngest Randy Mason that you can remember being, and tell us a little bit about what it sounded like to be you, keeping in mind that unless you come from where you come from, nobody has any idea what that looks or sounds like.
Man, I like listening to y'all stories, dude. When y'all putting out your audio book?
Oof, that's a good idea.
I'm gonna cop that. You got a customer.
Thank you for the recommendation.
That was a story. So yeah, I guess as far back as I can remember, what it sounded like being born in Spanish Harlem in Mount Sinai, was salsa music coming out of the barbershops and the grocery stores, my grandmother's apartment, and Washington houses, and on 103rd Street in Lexington. It sounded like gospel music, black church music. It sounded like, we used to go to church a lot. And actually, in terms of like, I love the freestyle and I love the improvise. And thinking back, kind of like in the way that you described it, I try to always think like, where did that come from and where did it start? And I think I'm influenced heavily by the black church and the improvisational kind of culture in the black church, where the pastor would just start playing something and then just start singing something that didn't exist 5 minutes prior, and then the whole congregation would be singing, and it would be this whole movement. So there was a lot of that.
Hold on, you're saying like the church was effectively like one of those loop sessions, but like a group loop session?
What's the
Like when somebody would play like a little line, and then everybody would kind of join in and start like singing it together in a sense.
Exactly. Yes. And that's traditional all the way back, to the Negro hymns and everything like that. But so, gospel music, salsa music, those are the two the biggest influences when I was really, really young would probably be salsa and black gospel.
Real quick, I got a immediate like inquiry with that. I'm just like, right, like, to Holden, right, to explain to you a little bit, right, like in black churches is kind of like how many people did not come through like the music industry, either through hip hop or R&B, that didn't get their start in black churches. It like for us, for our artists, like a vast majority of them, this is not but it's actually something that in our long journey of interviewing a lot of people rarely has been brought up. So like, I'm curious if you, Randy, were like brought up in the church, right? Mm-hmm. And if you were, can you like give us a little bit of background on what kind of church, what that, you know what I mean? Because right, like depending on what kind of church, depending on what kind of music was cracking off in there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I agree. I think a lot of R&B, soul icons, hip hop icons came out of I keep referencing the black church, but but I think in hip hop in particular, at least in my experience, you don't really hear that story as much with MCs. You hear a lot with singers more so, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I did grow up in the church. My father, when I was a baby, I was born in '85, and my father, he came to God when I was like a baby, when I was born. That's when he like gave his life, to Christ, and kind of turned his life around and everything like that. So as I was growing up in, 85, 86, 7, early 90s, we used to go to like Brooklyn Tabernacle, Harlem Tabernacle. These are like non-denominational Christian churches. I guess you could say traditional gospel, big choirs, type vibe. So yeah, mostly non-denominational Christian churches. I grew up in that for most of my childhood, probably until my early teens.
The choirs in those churches are kind of like that's like the I'm trying to make analogies here that probably like I've never made before. So if I end up reaching out of reach, you know what I mean? Feel free to pull me back in. But like that's like they're like the black college marching bands of churches, right? Where it's just like they're the top tier of like choir music out of all the like churches, the non-denominational, right? Where like they might get spicy enough to remix like what Kanye's doing with his choir, which if people are unfamiliar, right? Like he's had his choir cover some like SWV songs, some Back to Life, songs that are like black barbecue established like songs, and like he has his choir covering them, and like that's something that actually isn't new. That's something that actually has been done for like decades in those churches that like in non-denominational churches, like the one that Randy went to.
Yeah, I was captivated every Sunday. That was my favorite part of service was the, there were particular people in the choir when they came out to sing. I was like, oh, it's about to be on, I would tell my mom, like, I wanted to meet some of them. Like, oh, I want to meet this person, right? So there was a beautiful time. It was a very influential time of my life, musically, also spiritually, and in a lot of ways. So, yeah, man.
Did you have any desire to like be involved in music at a young age?
Yeah, at a very young age. So, there was that early influence, as I mentioned, in the church and kind of just in the neighborhood, the barbershop, the salsa music. There used to be in front of my building this guy playing the congas all the time. So there was it was always this rhythm around me. And then what really kind of set it off, at least in terms of MCing, was my older brother, my eldest brother, Wes, was an MC and still is an MC. So when I was like, I don't know, 8 years old, 9 years old, playing Nintendo, he was like, in the room kicking rhymes and stuff. And I remember hearing that and thinking it was like a song that existed. And I was like, oh, like, what is that? And he's like, oh, like it was something he wrote. And I was so blown away by that. I'm like, what? Like, you could do that? That's amazing. And so from then I started playing around and just freestyling and just like for fun, being silly with my brothers. We would make little tapes and stuff, but it just.
How did you make your tapes?
So we had a little, I don't know, Panasonic radio, but you could put the tape in and hit record and like rap or sing into the speaker, into the radio. So that was like 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Making little tapes and then recording over myself. And then after that, it just got, it just kind of grew from there. As I got older, started rhyming more, taking it more seriously. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of your questions, but, a friend of mine, Johnny Boy, shout out to Johnny Boy Vargas. He caught wind that I was like this little kid who could rhyme. And he was like, yo, I got something for you. And he brought me to the crib, and he had a turntable and he had some records with some instrumentals, and he had it rigged to a tape recorder. So we made a tape of me rhyming over whatever instrumentals he was putting on the turntable, and that was my first tape that I used to bring to my friends and put on in their car. Like, yo, listen to this. I wish I could find that tape, but it was all freestyle.
How old were you when you did that?
I couldn't have been maybe 14.
That's wild. So
yeah, probably around 14 years old. Yeah.
So basically, from that process of when you started rhyming, like you start like discovering it and deciding I'm gonna rhyme because you're a brother when you're like 8, and then as the years go on, you just kind of start getting good. Are you just like freestyling out on the block, or how do you actually go about building up enough of a reputation to get noticed enough to get picked into that tape situation?
It was just like me having fun. So like I would be in the house always freestyling and sometimes writing, but it was mostly freestyling. And then when I would hang out with my friends, my brother would beatbox and I would just rhyme for hours and hours and hours and hours. And that's how my boy Johnny caught wind that I was rhyming. And yeah, that tape was like freestyle. So I was writing a little bit, but I was freestyling way more. And it kind of just was like a hobby, I guess, a passion. And then it began to become more serious. I remember this was like a pivotal moment. So I was really young. So I was like freestyling and I was starting to feel myself like, oh man, I could do this. And we're going to the store in my neighborhood and we bump into this dude who's probably, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years my senior. And I didn't know him. But he was a beast MC. He was like an incredible MC. And other people knew and I didn't know. So they were like, oh, yo, Rand, you should rhyme with him, blah, blah, blah. And basically he just destroyed me. I tried to kick rhymes with him and he just destroyed me. And I was like, wow. That was my first like experience with like an MC that was just, you know what I mean, next level. Because when I'm rhyming with my friends and some of them didn't rhyme, it was easy to be dope around people who don't rhyme, right? But so when I met, his name is Busy Berserk. Shout out to my man, Busy Berserk, Christopher Robin. When I met him, that changed the game. And I went home and I was like, yo, I gotta work. And then he became like a mentor for me. So Busy Berserk put me on and would play all the hip hop classics and school me on all kinds of different, techniques and rhymes. And we would rehearse for his mom in his living room. We would write rhymes and rehearse for her and then go, rhyming cyphers and eventually playing shows and stuff like that. Wherever we could get in because we were young. I remember sneaking into not sneaking in, but I don't know if it was they didn't have an age requirement on this particular night, but at the New York Poets Cafe, I remember going in, getting on the mic in front of people. Same thing with EO Dub, going to the Pyramid. So this brother that I mentioned, he's the one who would bring me out to all these places. Like, yo, all right, you got to go to the Pyramid. You got to rhyme at EO Dub. All right, you got to go rhyme at New York Poets Cafe. He would bring me, he'd be like, yo, you got to go battle this cat. We would go to Lehman High School and there would be, 50 people outside cyphers and he would throw me in the mix and like, yo, it's time to go. Shout out to Busy Berserk.
So if I understand then, Busy Berserk is like, yo, let's ride. And he already knew the network. And by virtue of him knowing the network, you had just said, I, and then went with him. And then rhymed on command when necessary and held your shit down around all the elders because otherwise it would have been bad news bears.
Yeah, basically, man, that's how it went down. And I got embarrassed plenty of times, which was good for me. It was part of my growth.
That's all of us did. It's just not all of us like to be honest about it, right? Like New York City is one of those cities that like if you grow up here, you learn the motto that there's always going to be somebody bigger and tougher early on in life because it doesn't matter. Like, it don't matter how bad you, like how good or, or in a, bad in a good way you are, right? Like there's always going to be another motherfucker out this bitch that's like bigger and badder than you. It's New York City. Like you're competing with the top of the, like the top, like the creme de la creme over here. You know what I mean? Like everybody's essentially born
15?
talented.
You're like 14, 15 doing all this, if my math is correct. Can we not just acknowledge how fucking boss that still is? Like, I know everybody be like, I was 14 with the old guys and I wasn't that. I'm like, bro, you were fucking there. I was not doing anything like that at that age. Most people was not being cool at that age out there rapping in cyphers in front of places like the Pyramid. Like, that's actually a next level move at that age, in my opinion.
It was wild. I'm super grateful. A little circle of friends that we used to that's all we used to do is hang out and rhyme all the time. We had a friend, shout out to my man who sometimes he would stutter when he rhymed. and it was like training camp. Like it was like no mercy. You know what I'm saying? Like and he got because of it. You know.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna say you getting washed by the OG, right? Like that's the type of shit that is supposed to happen, right? Like you're supposed to get like adversity on the block at home before you're ever even allowed off the block to like represent the block and like say that you're from whatever block. Like you're supposed to get washed up and like that's like you're always. I feel like New York City is always like a breeding ground for like MCs. Like like it really puts you through the ringer. And like depending on what neighborhood you're from, depending on what lesson you might learn first, type shit. You know, like it just always changed by neighborhood, not even borough. You know.
Yep. Right on.
Yeah.
That's super nifty. So like when you were out there running like these ciphers, did you run into anybody cool?
Yeah, a few people. I had the privilege of working with G-Bo the Pro, who's like, you know, New York City kind of staple, you know, DJ. He was him and Double R. They would put out mixtapes, known for putting out mixtapes way back in that. So we a friend of mine, like one of my mentors, knew him, and so we used to record demos in his basement, G-Bo the Pro. And I remember coming to his crib one day, and this dude walks past me, and my friends who were older than me was like, "Yo, bugging out, like you know who that was?" I didn't know who it was, and it was Kool G Rap. They're like, "Yo, I was Kool G Rap," and I'm like, oh, "Okay." I didn't know at the time who Kool G Rap was, so they had to school me, put me on everything. I'm like, so, but like now in hindsight, I'm like, man, that's pretty cool. Like I was coming in while he was going out. Same thing with we used to record with Vinny Idol, who's a producer for the Locks and Rough Riders and those guys. And so we would show up and like Jadakiss, Styles, and those guys would be either there, we had to wait, or they would be leaving while I was coming in. So that was pretty cool. And then, just, you know, I'm trying to think, you know, Tony Touch, bumped into Tony Touch and, you know, other folks around.
Tony Toca.
Yeah, it was
Touch is such a dope. He's such a great like representation of the culture and you know what I mean, the New York scene. Like he's still active to this day, still like fucking puts on a hell of a fucking party. Like and has been around doing it for real hard for like all these years.
Yeah, he's definitely you know, one of the greats. Not only like creatively and musically, but even just as a person. I remember bumping into him later, you know, as a young adult, and I was working at a hospital in East Harlem, and I had my scrubs on, and I was outside on a break or something, and he's walking down the street. I'm like, oh my God. So I start talking to him. I'm like, yo, blah, blah, blah. And then I'm like, yo, would you mind if I run inside and grab my demo for you? Like it was in my job, in the locker room. You know, people don't gotta wait. He's going somewhere. And he was like, nah, go ahead, cool. And like I ran in, grabbed it, came, he was mad cool, asking me questions, like, oh, boom, boom, boom. And so he showed a lot of love. And then years later after that, I remember driving home one night and just randomly listening to his show on, it was on Sirius Satellite at the time. And I heard one of my joints come on, and I was like, that was huge for me, you know? I was like, man, that's crazy. So shout out to Tony Touch.
That's a big knowledge nugget right there if you think about what you just said. Because, a lot of us be into immediate gratification with pretty much all things related to marketing and branding, and we're not very patient. Like, I had a moment where somebody once told me, I'm going to book you one day for a performance, and I wrote it off. 18 months later, I got an email from those people. So in that same kind of idea, right? Like, you gave this guy your tape, and you never heard. For you, it was just nothing. And if you were like a petty person, it was fuck that guy and I'm out of it, and saltiness. But nah, you weren't. And then you allowed yourself to fuck with his shit stills. And then you got the blessing of finding out that the universe had that shit in motion and you weren't even cognizant of it. That's actually a pretty big thing to pay attention to, because that's kind of how I see life working a lot more than the part where you get rewarded right away.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, instant gratification is problematic, you know? That's why I got to jump off of social media every now and then, because, you know, it wires your brain for that. You know, wires your brain for instant gratification, and
Facts.
it's not always been.
Yeah, I know. That's a big point too. So you're like, still like you're doing the teenage thing, and you're basically performing at all these places, and you're kind of already building up a bit of a reputation. And you had your tape at that point that you made also. So you have something to push at that point, and then what kind of comes after that in terms of your story? Because that's already a pretty strong point by like let's say 15ish. Like you're coming in hot.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, around that time, like I was just recording a lot. You know, I was learning. It was all, and I'm still learning. I'm still a student, but I was definitely like in school, you know, for the art of emceeing. So I was learning a lot from the people that I mentioned. Jibo the Pro. Oh, why would you record it that way? You should do this, or you should add doubles, or you should, you know what I mean, say it differently. So there was like all of that, just a lot of repetition in terms of, you know, putting in reps lyrically, ciphers and battles and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, I guess
what I'm sorry to interrupt, but what? How old are you? Like around this time? Would you
so
say?
these are my teen years. So this is 14
So like,
all through 18. You know.
So like, but this is like being around Jibo and them like helping you with your recording process. We're talking like later teens then, right? So like.
Well, I was pretty young when I was recording with Jibo, so I was probably 15, 16.
15, 16.
Yeah.
So
yep.
15, 16, though, I was going to say you're already in high school. Like
right.
You're probably in your sophomore or freshman year, depending on when you graduated elementary or junior high, depending on, you know what I mean, what and I was going to say, what high school did you go to?
So I went to Life Sciences Secondary High School on 96th Street in Manhattan.
Boom.
And then
that is nice. You see, like this is why I asked, right? So like you went to a high school in the city, in Manhattan.
Because so there's a whole story about the girl, like right here.
Yeah, no, I asked because you know what I mean. Like Holden got to recently visit New York City.
I actually know what a 96 means for the first time ever, because
and he kind of can understand a little bit better now, right?
Yeah.
And like, there's a lot of like a lot of this show is right. It's us learning about you, Randy, and all our guests, right? But it's also like Holden learning about our culture here in the States.
Holden and everybody else that's not from New York City, because if you're not from New York City, you may as well be Holden in this conversation.
And a lot of our viewers, right, are like people who aren't from the city and are from all over. You know, they're like watching from all over.
Especially so as like, the dub grows to the more internationalness of life.
So like he's representative and indicative of those people, right? But like, I'm here as a fellow New Yorker and understanding, and like I understand like there's a grave difference in being able to be privileged enough to, right? Like even if you went to a bad school in Manhattan, you got to be on the island of Manhattan, which kind of like increases your downtown access and likelihood.
Right. Yeah,
you know what I mean? Which like a lot of the borough kids might fuck around and live their whole lives and not really delve into the city much, right?
Right.
So like, tell us about your high school, and as you're like going through this journey, right? Tell us about like what it's like mingling the recording process with school and like what you're doing in the city. You know what I mean? Like because your school is in Manhattan, so.
That's a great observation and great question. So in junior high school, I was in the Bronx and in IS 192, and I was not doing well. I was not doing well academically. I was not doing well in school. Period. I was wilding out. And part of it was just me being young and
absolutely
rebellious and just kind of going through that.
That's the age every human being, like it's literally like it's like we all swear that it's like no it's like every human being for the most part, except the really really goody two shoe kids,
even
right?
then
who are already
they had their
like,
relative
being
versions
really good, and they have their relative. I was gonna say exactly like
Yep.
that for them. They're like, yeah, I remember that one night that I like stayed up late, and it's like, oh, watch out, party animal, you know. But like, you know,
Yeah.
this is you were being how you were supposed to be for your age.
Yeah. So I wasn't doing well in school, and so part of it was that, like I mentioned, and then the other part was I was so into music and writing rhymes that it was very difficult to keep my attention in class. And so I would daydream a lot. I would write rhymes a lot. And so my mother saw that I was not doing well, and she actually worked at Mount Sinai Hospital in Manhattan. And I guess she heard about this. She wanted me to be closer to her. You know what I'm saying? So she put me on like, yo, this is opportunity. It's a secondary school. It's like, you know, it's a different vibe. The year I came in, it was only freshman class, like the first year, and then
you got to be able to go in there. How? Because you're still living in the Bronx, right? So it's not your own school.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yo, is that a thing?
Like
you
she
can't
used her address, and no, you can't. You go to like for elementary school and junior high school, you kind of go you go to your zone school, and then for high school you can choose to go to a non-zone school. But like usually, you know, like sometimes, especially if it's like a specialty school, they require you to like be local.
Test or interview or something. Yeah.
Or test, exactly.
Yeah, it was a secondary school. So I think the way it kind of operated, like the way we see charter schools today, if I'm not mistaken, because I didn't have to go to an interview or anything like that. And it wasn't my zone, unless mom did something I wasn't aware of. But I ended up going to this school, you know, taking the 6 train from the Bronx to 96th Street. And like you mentioned, it is interesting, especially 96th Street, because I've always looked at 96th Street as the border between East Harlem, you know, Harlem Uptown, and like Manhattan downtown.
Yeah,
like 96 South is completely different from 96.
That's Manhattan. That's where Manhattan starts. Uptown is everything from. I mean, it's debatable, right? I've had this discussion with many New Yorkers. I don't know if you're familiar with Jay Smooth, and Jay Smooth is from that area, right? That cusp of Uptown to what would be considered like Upper West Side or Upper East Side, right? And that's where the bougie live, right? And like it's almost like a border, like it's like between 96th Street to like maybe like I've heard people debate all sorts of numbers. I consider it like 100th Street, like right around there, like where it really, you know, stops. It's pretty much when the bad buildings, right? Bad buildings, like stop and the nice buildings, you know, start. I guess you could say how they would put it.
On 96th Street, if you go, I mean, at that time, you go 1 block south, 95th Street, and you had, you know, you had the condos and the nice restaurants and coffee shops. If you went from 96 up 1 block north, 97, you had Washington Housing Projects right there, and Metropolitan Hospital and all of that, you know. So anyway, so that was interesting because I was going uptown and downtown and kind of running around there as well. And then again, I was so in love with this music, man. It you know,
took up everything.
It took up everything. And so I ended up getting in trouble a lot in school. I got in trouble for rhyming in school. I got in trouble for writing graffiti in school. I got in trouble for breaking in school. I got in trouble for pretty much any and every you know,
hip hop related activity that you could be doing in school.
In the school. At the same time, it was also recognized by a few teachers and, you know, definitely peers, but a few teachers like, yo, that's kind of, you got something there. But all this
that's awesome. That's awesome, by the way. Like that's super, you know, like I like to use the word privilege, right? And like you were privileged. You were privileged to have some teachers who obviously cared. You know what I'm saying? Like, which is rare. So like,
which is, and it's wild because so I ended up dropping out of school. So I did my freshman year, just totally, you know, failing on my classes. And then we tried to do like the last hurrah, and I ended up going to Lehman High School the following year in the Bronx, back to the Bronx. And Lehman was just such a huge school. Like I was just I was lost. Like, I'm like, yo, people don't even know if I'm here. Like, I
Yeah,
don't
nobody
even,
cares.
yeah, I don't matter. And so I would just be out. I'm like, all right, I'm out. And that was, you know.
And you guys had like, if I'm not mistaken, you guys got to have outside school lunch, so it made cutting school pretty fucking easy. You know what I mean? These are all nuanced things that like you only know as a New Yorker, right? So like certain high schools in New York City, you can't leave the school for lunch. So like lunch is in the building, and you can only. But then some schools they let you go out for lunch, and Lehman happened to be one of those schools, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Everybody, yeah, you could go out and eat out for lunch.
And that
So
makes cutting school even easier. It makes you feel, I'm pretty sure, even like more of a reason of like, what the fuck am I doing here? I'm fucking out. Don't nobody care if I'm here or not. You know, like your teachers don't care. You're fucking one of thousands. Like
yeah,
classes already beginning to be overrun with too many students and not enough teachers. Like way
yeah.
super easy to get the tag. And you have something that you care about, you know?
Mm-hmm. And then, yeah, on top of that, it wasn't safe. You know, it was going down. It was going down heavy at Lehman and in Manhattan. You know what I'm saying? So, and I guess you could make the argument, that was relative to the circles that I was associated with, perhaps. But I was always like a dreamer, man. I was like, I don't want to be around this. I would go be alone and write rhymes. I'm like, yo, I want to go just like cool out. And so interestingly enough that I'm an educator now, that I work in schools, and we're gonna, I'm sure, get to that portion of the story. But I just always find that an interesting dynamic, having the challenges that I had in school as a student, and then now working in schools as an educator and a teaching artist and everything, which I love. I love that, working with young people and connecting with young people, and hopefully providing space and opportunities that I would have loved when I was in school, but just weren't available at the schools that I attended. But yeah, so that was my teen years, all the while making music, all the while writing rhymes, as I just mentioned.
Did you graduate?
Nah, I didn't. So I dropped
graduate.
Out. No, I dropped out of high school and was just kind of running around the streets for a couple years.
You got your
music.
GED?
Yeah, I ended up getting my GED. Yep. Music
ended up afterwards or during those years?
Probably a few years later. But music opened me on the like right on the cusp, So when a lot of my friends was like, as things were getting more serious, as we're getting older, people were getting locked up and different things like that. I was always like just right there. But music, thank God, I was so interested in music
Saving grace.
I couldn't, saving grace, man. I'm like, yo, I can't flip this pack, man. I'm no good at this, right? All my peoples is doing this. I'm like, I don't know, man. I'm no good at this. So anyway, I'm good at this, right? So I would go back to where I was celebrated, where I was affirmed, which for me was MCing. So I'm grateful for that. Thank God.
That is definitely like a pretty big blessing to end up being in the environment to rely on MCing to get through it. I mean, that part of your story, I'm like, I don't know how to comment on that except to say I'm glad that you got through that situation, and I'm glad you're sharing it with us, because a lot of us, those weren't choices I had to face ever. Like, I mean, I know there are people in my city, it's a pretty big city, that did face that choice, but in my life that never happened. So it's so like as you get to that point, when you say you're celebrating the circles, are you still doing like the running through end of the week and places like that, or has it like elevated to something beyond, let's say, that open mic circuit?
Yeah, so eventually, so a couple things happened that started to shift my life and move me in different directions. For one, I had a son when I was 18. My son was born. So shout out to Big Ran, who used to be Little Ran, but now he's like 6'4". So I had my son, and so that dramatically changed things. So I was like, yo, I gotta get like a legit job. I was 18 and I was still running around the streets. People was selling drugs and kind of just living day to day. And I was like, yo, I can't do this anymore. I got to get a job. I got to figure something out. So I ended up getting a job. Shout out to my man Frank, who hooked me up with a gig in dialysis, working in dialysis for people who have kidney failure. So I came in, I started doing that. So all the while I'm doing music, but there was a big shift at that point because I started working full time, and so the music kind of slowed down. And then I got a call from a brother named Akil Dasan, who's an incredible musician, MC, singer, just a great brother. And he called me and he was like, yo, I got this opportunity. I think, we might, basically he was trying to work out a deal at Atlantic Records. Right. Okay. And at the time, the story was they wanted him to be a part of a group and not a soloist. And so he called me up and he called up Adeline Michelle, who's an amazing singer and bass player. And he's like, yo, I got this vision. Let's form a group. Let's do a trio, Fuji's vibe, so on and so forth. And I was blown away because I saw him as such an amazing, incredible talent. Sometimes I've heard it said that you're the only person in the room that you can't see, right? So, I esteemed him, as, higher than myself, you know what I'm saying? And so when he hit me up, I was like a real honor. So I was like, man, wow, that's dope. And so long story short, we ended up forming this trio. And then that was the next, 5, 6, 7 years of playing music, which I'm super grateful for. And so we played just shows everywhere, all around New York, went to Philly. We could take, flight out to Europe and do some things in Paris. And so we were playing music, and that was a fun time. We didn't end up getting signed by that record label. We messed with them and recorded demos, and how that stuff.
You got to perform in Paris?
We did, yes, we did.
Yeah, that's dope.
What's that like?
Yeah, it was dope. It was incredible, and it was really like affirming for me. I remember standing under the Eiffel Tower at like 3 a.m. The lights were off because they cut them off. I didn't know they cut them off at a certain hour, but we got there and the lights were off. But I was like, yo, I just need a minute. And I went under there and I was by myself. And I told myself, I was like, yo, you're here because of your gift. Like, that's literally the only reason you're here is because of your gift to MC. And I held on to that, and I still hold on to that. Like, wow, like MCing literally brought me, here, whatever. So so we played a whole bunch of shows out there. It was phenomenal. It was a beautiful time. The group was amazing. Like I said, Akil and Adeline. And so we rocked for a couple years, and I learned a lot about MCing. All of these phases of my life were like different, almost grades in the school of MCing. Okay. So I was learning when I was young, and I was in the cypher, and I was doing all that stuff that I mentioned earlier, working with G-Bo, learning how to record. And then when I was working with this group, it was all about the live performance because they were musicians. And so we was hitting spots, and it was just a different vibe. And so I had to learn how to, connect with the crowd and how to play my role in a larger, a group. I wasn't a soloist anymore. And so I learned a lot from Akil and from Adeline. And then we used to play on the subway a lot. So we used to get on the subway and hustle and make a gang of money, just playing music. It was crazy. We used to call it the S train hustle because the S train, we used to play all the trains, but we played the S train a lot, which is the shuttle from Times Square, from the east side to the west side. And so it's literally just, one stop back and forth, right? It's the shuttle. And so we timed it. It was maybe it's a great train to like busk in.
Hold on.
Because
so you're saying like
the ride
on the train, like you're like riding on the train.
On the moving train, and so every
you
stop.
can do that in New York.
Yeah.
No, you're not.
I'm surprised you haven't seen the videos. We have so many viral videos.
I mean, I see it, but like I don't really think about it, shit. Like I just because it's one of those things you don't. Anyway, I didn't.
Yeah, so technically, if I'm not mistaken, if you're not amplified, it's okay as long as you're not bothering. But that could be, you know, I've had officers come on and I would look at them like, school, and they'd be like, yeah, and we would rock. And then I've also got arrested on the train, so that's another story. But
it's always case by case.
Yeah,
it's never like all cops are cool. They're all gonna be never.
Yeah, no, you never know. Listen, and I know I'm jumping from story, but my
great.
father's a retired NYPD, you know, officer.
Mm-hmm.
So actually that day when I had got, you know, locked up on the train, I don't like to pull that card. So the cop was talking to me. I'm like, all right, boom, boom, boom. And then, you know, he put the cuffs on me and I'm like, oh man. And then eventually it came out and I told, he's like, oh, you should have told me, it's too late, blase. But the shuttle train, you would have a new audience every minute and 15 seconds. So, and it was a full jam-packed cart. So you had a minute and 15 seconds to hit it, right? Collect bread, and then boom, a whole new crowd came on. So it was crazy. We would do 4 hours and make like, you know, just a gang of money. And then that's like a touristy kind of area too. So you have
people touristy, So you have a lot of business.
And all you need is really like in theory, you need just a really tight 2 minutes.
Yeah, just tight.
Yeah.
The subway, maybe more than anything. I don't know if I could compare, but the subway, I think, really is where I learned the most about
performing
and engaging with people, because people ain't come on and rhyme. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. People having a day, people going through different things, and so I learned, you know, things like tone, things like expression, and how you let people know like it's cool, it's love, and then. You know what I mean? It's a lot of unspoken, you know, body language, things like that. And those are the things now that kind of naturally play out at shows. Because on the subway, man, yo, if you ain't got it, you in the wrong.
Yeah, it's a great learning place. That's a great proving ground in New York City trains.
That's actually
you will get shut, especially for rap. Like you will get shut down. Like that's one of the least popular forms of entertainment on New York City trains, because there's probably 10 rappers sitting in every train car, you know? Right. So there's a lot of judgment going down as soon as you start rapping. So like to be able to successfully, you know, be able to like make some cheddar, you know, like it's a great place to like sharpen your knife and sharpen your skills.
You did that for years.
Yeah, we did it for a few years. It was my favorite thing in the world to do. Actually, sometimes I would get sad and I didn't realize I was sad because I hadn't done it in a while. My wife would be like, you should go hustle on the train. You should go rhyme on the train because you're like getting in your mood, you know? But, interacting with children, you know, on the trains, families, as kids. And so you rhyming and you interacting with them. All those dynamics are really important to me. And I miss it. It's been a while. So we did that for a lot of years. And then I transitioned and we started this thing called Transformers, like Transformers, but Transformers. And that was more like a ministry. Like it was, so the first part was hustle and we just make a gang of bread. And it was beautiful. It was awesome. But the second part that I'm describing was more like we would bring sandwiches and give out food and water and pray with people and talk with people, you know, about what they was going through. And so that was a whole nother vibe. Like we would have full blown trains singing with us. It was beautiful. And then, you know, it's been a while and the train is different now, you know, after the pandemic and all that, but maybe one day I'll get back to it. But so I played in that trio for a while in the band, played in a couple groups, a couple bands, and then, you know, went back to, you know, solo, act or whatever you want to call it, eventually, you know what I'm saying?
So do you know when it was about that you became a solo actor? Like how old were you?
So now I'm telling so many stories. We're going through like all these years. So like, so I'm 30. I just turned 37 February 1st last week. I guess it was last week, 2 weeks ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Word up. Yes. So yeah, I played in a trio and some other bands. I played in like a punk hip hop band for a short time, and that was a lot of fun. Shout out to my man Dave Youngman.
That sounds dope. That's dope.
It really
Yo,
does sound dope.
that
Yeah,
was so
rappers like those like bands like that are like that's like I think any real like rap performer artist like wet dream, is like be able to like rock out with like a band that's like able to keep up and like hold you down for real. It's like this is
yeah.
ideal.
Yep, that was a lot of fun. And to this day, my favorite way to play is with the band, whether that be a small band or a larger band. And I just got so used to it from the years that I playing in that trio. Like that's how we played for so long. And then playing on the train, I would be accompanied by a guitarist or somebody on the hand drum, like a djembe or the cajon. And so yeah, like through my 20s, I was in that trio and other bands and groups and things like that. Then in my early 30s, I was in a duo with my man Damian B. Sanders. Shout out to my man Damian. We had a group called Jesus Peace, and we did that for a few years. That was dope. Got to go to Australia with him and do a hip hop conference out there. Shout out to Uprock, all my people out there in Sydney, Australia. So we did that, and then probably like my mid 30s. Things started. I just felt like I wanted to get back to some of that, of the essence of what like when I was younger. You know what I'm saying? And when I was emceeing, and I had kind of this, I just wanted to I needed some space. You know what I'm saying? Groups could be a lot of work. It's like family, relationships.
You got to work with the dynamics of working with other people's personalities. It's rough.
Yeah,
It's not easy.
not,
Most groups in hip hop disband for that exact reason right there.
exactly.
I don't know what the exact percentage is, but I'm willing to bet it's greater than 50. More than half of the groups in hip hop break up because of like just it's rough to keep a lot of people together. It's not easy to get more than one person to all march to the beat of the same drum and go in the same direction, all with the same goal in mind, and to constantly keep that goal in mind. Like, it's rough. It's not easy.
Especially as you get older. So now at this point, I'm raising a family. And so it's like decisions. I'm trying to it's hard enough for me to keep up with my kids and my wife and like what we're doing is, you know what I mean, to coordinate. And so it just felt like it was time.
Scheduling conflicts at that point must be ridiculous.
Yeah. And so I went back to doing, solo music and stuff, and still working with a gang of people, always collaborating and working with people. Yeah, so most recently, I've been putting out records with a producer out of San Antonio, Texas, who goes by Gainsborough, an amazing producer. And we've been doing some joints, and I'm, excited about that,
I saw you.
Tell us more about that.
Yeah.
Say what?
I was going to ask him to tell us more about that, but go ahead.
I was going to say I saw your Tiny Desk performance audition tape.
Oh, word. Yeah, that was fun. It's funny you bring that up because I did not audition last year. I think that was 2 years ago, whatever it was. But I think I want to do it this year. So I got to schedule that. Yeah, they showed us love. They put us on their blog. It's one of their favorite auditions and everything, NPR. We didn't win, but it was fun. Yeah.
It's a good look.
Yeah, how did you link up with him? That's still one time. I agree with Flacko. We need to talk more about that still.
The producer I just mentioned, Gainsborough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually we connected online. I believe it was on IG. So I don't recall exactly how we were maybe following each other or something, but he hit me up and he was like, "Yo, I'm working on this album." I think it was an instrumental album, and he was gonna have like 1 or 2 vocalists on it on the album, and he asked if I would be one, and so he sent me the beat, and I was like, "Yo, this joint is dope," and so I did the song. It's called Sunk Ship. I did the song with him, and then that turned into maybe a month or 2 months later another song, and then I think we did like 3 joints, and then the vibe was just right. We was like, "Yo, let's do a project." And so we did an album. And what was that? Was it 2019 or 2020? I think it was 2020. called Remix the Sky. And people seem to enjoy the record. And so then we followed it up, and we just been we put out a couple singles after that, and we're working on a project now. So yeah, he's super dope, and I enjoy working with him.
That's awesome. And how does the NPR process work? You just got to record a video and then submit it, and then you get to just be on the show if they approve you?
Yeah, so I think they opened up auditions March. I forget the day, but it's coming up. It's in March. And yeah, you just got to shoot a video performing with a desk in the video. And they have their judges. You can read on the website like how they judge and who's judging and stuff like that. And that's basically it. So people all over the world.
Somebody needs to send in like a submission where like they perform under the desk and shit. Like they're wild afraid.
Oh my gosh, I was
holding their blankie and shit. That'd be wild crack.
I like
NPR,
like holding my blankie.
NPR is like that's one of my goals. Like I really enjoy watching the Tiny Desk concert series.
You're gonna get it.
Yeah,
you're gonna get it. You're putting it into the world.
They did the thing. They were in a coffee shop
pursuing it
or some
That's
shit.
it, bro. Like
they weren't. He wasn't like at just a desk. They was like, fuck that. We can do this in the room with people. We good. And it was tight. Yeah. It was really like down.
Oh, that's dope.
It was like
thank you. Yeah, it wasn't planned. We just we showed up to a coffee shop like, yo, there's a table. Let's do it. And there was people in the room, and we were like, yo, they was talking. We was like, yo, we're gonna do this quick thing, performance. And so they enjoyed it. It was like an impromptu concert that we all got to have that wasn't exactly planned. But yeah, I think I'm gonna do it again this year, and I have an idea. So I just gotta make it work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. So along the way, you become an educator, and how does that journey start?
Yeah. So it started really as a conversation that I was having with my wife after work every day. So she's an educator. So she at the time she was a teacher, and she's still in education now. And so we would be at the kitchen table talking about hip hop and education. She'd be talking about school, and I'd be talking about rhymes and stuff like that. And I remember she told me one day, she's like, these people visited my school today, these artists, I think they were percussionists, and they taught a workshop, and it was cool. Like, you could do that. And I was like, word, I could do that. You know what I mean? And then, and that the seed had already been kind of planted in years prior. I had not many, but I had did a few school performances. Like, my boy was like, yo, I got this school thing in the assembly. You want to come rhyme? And I was like, sure, maybe 2 or 3. So the seeds were there. And then when my wife and I really got to talking about it, it became like an idea that turned into something real. And she and I, we were like drawing out the logo on a piece of paper at the kitchen table, like, yo, we could call it this. It could look like this. And I literally drafted up, the first version of a lesson plan of like a unit of teaching the art of emceeing, bridging mic skills with life skills, like music and mentoring. So I like drafted it, and I would just go to schools and be like, yo, this is what I do. And I started getting gigs, started getting after school, gigs, and working at different community centers, working at hospitals, working with young people around the Bronx and Harlem. And I did that for like maybe 3 or 4 years. And then I met Jeremy Del Rio, who's the executive director at a nonprofit called Thrive Collective. And then I basically, we locked arms, and I moved what I was doing into the larger organization that is Thrive Collective. And so the program that I'm referring to is called Rhyme. Rhymes help young minds excel. And as I mentioned, we try to bridge mic skills and life skills. So there's the art of emceeing and actually, the process of writing a song and recording a song. But then there's also like the mentoring and the transferable principles, the things that we can learn from hip hop culture and art that apply to other areas of life. And so, we try to bridge the two in our programs. And I love it. I'm a dad, so I have 6 kids, and I love kids. And so working with young people, school
Bless.
is a dream, man. Like literally today I had, today and tomorrow, second graders, fifth graders, and high school seniors, separately, different, programs. But each, I love it. Like I can't, I really enjoy it. And it's a blessing and a privilege that I'm able to do that. So I'm super grateful, especially coming from what we talked about earlier, high school dropout, not doing well in school, to be able to come and provide, this opportunity for young people to experience the art of emceeing and write songs, to shoot music videos and learn the history, learn about the elements and the principles and all that stuff. It's a lot of fun, man, especially in the Bronx.
Yeah, it's really cool. Like when I went to the website, you have that
dope that you're bringing that to the borough.
That song, it's just all the kids rapping, like a giant like cipher cut almost, and it was like, yo, that's like noble shit. Like you're in like a realm of like you're doing it for the next generation and making it proper and teaching. And like there was like one community center in Montreal, just in one, that ended up producing about 50% of the English rappers at one point in the scene. Just one. And like It was pretty crazy because like I've talked to a lot of the people in a similar kind of way, and it was wild how many one place. So just the impact that a program like this has across multiple kids and stuff, it's just wonderful.
Yeah, I really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun and it's really rewarding. You know what I'm saying? Working with young people and helping them, because this, for me, writing is very therapeutic. As I explained earlier, all these different phases I went through in my life, writing has always been consistent, writing rhymes, and it's always been the way I process things, the way kind of it helps me to understand things, and so to also introduce young people, like, okay, rap is not just like what you hear on the radio, like, oh, it's rap music. Like, this is also a tool that you can use to express yourself, to it's like journaling, you know what I'm saying, to think about who you are. And it's dope, man.
Modern poetry, poetry, and they teach poetry in school. It's not like they don't, and they teach us about poems and haikus, and they teach us all that shit. You know what I mean? So it's just like there's no reason that like hip hop shouldn't be observed in the same exact way. It is exactly that, and it's a tool. And it's a tool of communication.
Yeah, a tool of communication. It started here. It started with young people, right? So why young people be excluded from it now in the place of its origin? You know what I mean? So I'm all for young people being at the table of hip hop, as students, but also as practitioners and also as teachers. That's what I often tell people. Like, when I'm in a classroom, it's not only to teach, but it's to learn. Like, being around young people, I'm learning, I'm observing, I'm listening, I'm asking questions. Because the same way, like, we're here because of something that, young people dreamt, right? Something that came from the hearts and minds of young people. You know what I mean? So knowing that, being aware of that, reminds me, like, yo, you need to be aware, you need to be attentive and in tune, because there's a lot of value and treasure in this room. And so, yeah, man.
So I got a question. If you're working with kids on music and you come from like the old timey hip hop land, do you find that working with the young ones has shaped or changed how you approach songwriting?
That's a good question. Has it changed the way I approach songwriting? So I think it's definitely, yes, the short answer is yes. I think it's humbling in a good way. It's humbling because the kids, they're like, yo, what? We on this wave, like, you know what I'm saying? And so going back to like learning, like, you're like, oh, what do you enjoy about this? What do you like about this? Whether it's, contemporary hip hop or whatever it may be. It's just, so has it shaped like the way I write songs? I think so. I think I have kids in mind a lot of times when I write, just naturally, like I said, being a dad and loving young people. So there might be messages and things in my music that you hear, like that, you hear me make a lot of references to the work that I do and also to my passion for young people and fatherhood. So I think in some ways it has, and they challenge me. They'll ask me to rhyme about this or rhyme about that or freestyle about this, or and so they challenge me, and so in that sense, it does sharpen my sword and cause me to push the boundary.
So in a sense, you get paid to go back in the days when people criticized your freestyles on the streets.
I used to get kicked out of class for rhyming. And now, I'm invited to schools to rhyme. You know what I'm saying?
Well, they really kick people out of school for rhyming. Like, that to me is not
I
something I've
mean, yeah,
thought about.
you're disturbing a class. Like, what the fuck?
Oh,
Take
okay,
that
like in
shit
that
outside.
context.
Like, yeah,
Yeah.
like so
He's on-
it's not like. And I remember back in the
Like,
days,
you're saying
like
you
it
guys
was
did that in
super
the
not
middle of class.
like
yeah,
you
so
would
you get everybody's attention, and my man is kicking a beat on the table, and I'm rhyming, and now you got a little crowd, and so it's like, yo, chill, we got to get class going. Or maybe it's I'm writing something, and then I'm trying to show it to my man, like, yo, oh, this is crazy, right? And she's like, yo, what are you doing? This is mad. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, we get in trouble for stuff like that. But
Okay.
it's
and you would think that because New York City is like, oh, the birthplace of hip hop, that it was like, oh yeah, hip hop was wild welcome in school. It's like, no, it was not. It was like, leave that shit outside. Like
yeah,
nobody was like encouraging it not at all, but for the
right,
most part, like it was
yeah,
super frowned upon. So it's not like, you know what I mean? It's not like, teachers like back in the days, like, yeah. This the Bronx and this is the birthplace of hip hop. Feel free to rap.
right.
Randy is like, no, Randy, chill the fuck out. Sit the fuck down. What are you doing? Like, we gotta get class started right now. Like, look at this guy. And then you keep going. Oh, you know what, Randy? Why don't you go to the fucking detention? Go to the principal's office. Explain to him what you're doing in my class.
It was bad.
Fucking,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was it. That was it. Well, we come full circle, so
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually reaching out to the schools that I went to see if they'll have our program in the schools.
That's really like pretty incredible. You said NPR was one of the things you really wanted to do. What are some of the other ones that you want to still accomplish on your bucket list that you'll get to?
Oh man, there's a lot, man. And they're all we're on the way. So I mean, for me, first is like a lot of personal goals. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms of my marriage, in terms of my my wife and I, and the health and vitality of our relationship and our kids. So I really I put my family first. I try to, at least, my wife and my kids. And so those are like my big goals. Like, yo, how can I be, how can I love and lead my family well? Like, what does that look like? What do I need to do to accomplish that? And that informs everything I do. So whether it's music or teaching, X, Y, and Z, it's like, how does that play into my goal to lead and love my family well, to be a good husband and a good father? And so I really want to see, those goals are coming to fruition, but I'm really like, that's what I'm very like dialed in on. And then as an artist, playing Tiny Desk for sure. I said this one time, I put it out, and I'll keep it a stack and say it because I said it, you know what I'm saying? But I told you about my playing on the train. So I said one time, I was like, yo, I'm gonna play the MTA. I was like, yo, one day I'm gonna play the MTA on my way to play MSG. And so I'm like, yo,
okay, bro.
I think
you just said 6. I don't know what those letters are.
So the MTA is the Mass Transit Authority. So that's the train.
Right.
And then MSG is Square Garden. So I'm saying I'm gonna play.
Okay.
On my way to a show at Madison Square Garden. So, that's some
that's pretty
that interesting.
Fire. That's actually like that's pretty lit. That's like the pre-show.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it popped into my head, you know what I'm saying? And so I was like, yeah. And that's it, man. I want to be able to take care of my family and love my wife and kids and create music and enjoy life. So, which I'm doing right now. So that's also sometimes part of the challenge, because I'm like, yo, it's, you know, it's now. And I do believe that. Like, I believe in obviously goals and pursuing greatness and going for different things. But I'm also very much in the present. And I'm also very aware that like my all of my goals, all of my hopes and dreams are right now. They're happening now, they exist now, they're available now. If I'm aware and attentive of the fact that it is now, it's not next year, 10 years from now, it's today. And so I try to stay in that place too. Like if you look at, you know, people laugh sometimes on my IG, I post sometimes stories like, you know, it rest. You know what I mean? You know, like just rest. Like stop striving, stop chasing, stop trying to become somebody. Like, you know, instead of trying to become, you know, just be, right? And so I'm trying to, because, you know, when I say rest, I think about rest not only physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. Like, and I wrestle with that. We all do as humans, right? But I wrestle with unrest, and I know what that feels like. And so I'm really, you know, my dream is to be at peace, is to be here right now, to know that this is it. It's not, you know, achieving whatever kind of accolade or some sort of amount of money or whatever the case. Those things are cool, and they may come and they may go. But right now, my kids, bro, my wife is dope. I write rhymes that are dope. I teach kids that are dope. I'm having an interview with people that are dope. Like, my life is amazing. And not easy by any stretch of the imagination, but amazing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
nothing
I
worth
feel
having
that.
is ever like easily attained.
I know,
So you know what I mean?
but even
Like,
everything you just said, there's really, really, yo, I personally struggle heavy with the whole living in the present while chasing dreams that are also manifesting in the moment while also being, because it's like the scale is the issue. It's not the
mm-hmm.
action anymore. I hit the
mm,
goals. Now it's
mm,
like the goals aren't good enough, so I need it. And I'm like,
mm,
I'm addicted to the grind of chasing
mm.
goals more than I'm into the satisfaction of achieving them.
The process, yeah,
But
yeah.
what you're saying about rest and shit,
That was very key what you said there, sir. I heard you. He's like, I'm more interested in just overall having lots of plans. I don't know about like really completing them all.
no, no, no. I
Maybe
mean,
some,
I
maybe
do care
not.
about it. I said no, but I'm cognizant of it, right? Because you want to
Yeah,
achieve
yeah. No, I
greatness.
mean, you're cognizant of the fact that there's a failure rate and you're being realistic. So, like, nah, I'm
Yeah,
just fucking with you. But
nah, it's fair.
yeah,
But like, yeah, no, but in the rest thing, it turns out that that's also really important. And everybody that's really
super.
rich goes on vacation like 7 times a year. So like, because
Yeah, right on.
when I'm young, I'm like, the fuck is that? That's the laziest shit ever. Now I'm like, oh, they don't want to die. They're just trying to stay alive and shit.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
right, man.
Vacation, yeah, you gotta get away. And people need to learn to like vacation properly too. Where like, I mean, those people know how to vacation properly, right? Because they're rich and they're wealthy. So like a vacation is like definitely done all the way right. But like they also can ruin it, right? By like doing this, which is like not just enjoying the fact that you're on vacation, which a lot of people do when they're on vacation. Like they make that into a whole nother thing. And it's
Mm,
like, yo, you need a vacation from your vacation because you worked while you were on vacation. Like you
yeah,
were doing so many things while on vacation that it's like, when did you actually vacation? Part of vacationing is like actually kicking back, you know what I mean? And like chilling
yeah,
out, you know?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I'm all about that. My new tag is rest. By the way, I like to write. You know what I'm saying, and that's why I've been writing rest like crazy. I love it. I ain't been bombing or nothing, but in my black books and in my crib or whatever. I'm
so
Yeah, I
saying,
mean, I
so just
definitely
to
would not
translate
recommend, sir.
that, you
You know
write
what I
in
mean?
the
Like
book thing that
you have
y'all
children.
see, the book is the thing that y'all carry around with each other, because when you hang out, you all tag each other's books and shit, because none of y'all really want to partake in the bombing, which is the more illegal nature of.
No, 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 no. It's not always that, right? Like I think that sometimes it's also just about sharing your style. And
Mm.
sometimes guys use that as their like,
yeah,
their pre-piece. Like they start planning it out in their head on paper in the black book of their friend or their own,
yeah.
and then
Then
they
put
go
it up.
out and they put it up.
Yeah. I got some bombers, some active bombers in my book that, you know, like he just said, just sharing styles and stuff. But
Yo,
yeah, man.
that's wild to think that there's all this crazy art that gets like documented in all these books that nobody ever gonna see.
Yeah, nah, it's a crime. Like there's like the black books. I mean, I think that like right, like for the most part, like it's New York City, so it's like yo, like everybody's like legit. Like if you got a black book that like you're participating in that has multiple people in it, chances are like there's some legit shit in there. You know what I mean? And it's just like pieces that is just like forever gone or lost or like left in that person's home. You know, when it's like yo, those books should all be like in a
Yeah.
museum somewhere. You know what I mean? Like there's been incredible pieces that I can only imagine have like just gotten thrown away when somebody passed away because like the family didn't realize like the value in the
Mhm.
art.
Yo, that's wild.
Yeah.
Nah, man. So that's like, I guess that brings us to where you're at now, where you're just kind of running through it. How did like COVID alter things for your life? Did it like create disruptions with because you work in the schools? Did you start doing it like remotely and things like that?
Yeah, COVID definitely, you know, turned everything upside down. In terms of work, we were able to pivot well, thank God, and kind of end up doing a lot of virtual uh I guess programming, and like we did, you know, we did a lot of what we were doing in person online during COVID, which, you know, is not preferable, obviously, for obvious reasons, but we made it through until we got back to in person. And even still now, obviously, when things jump off, we got to go back virtual. You know, at least we have a system in place to be able to do that. And then for us, really, it was in the house because, you know, my kids' school was closed, so my wife and my kids and we was in the crib. But you know, obviously it was a super hard time for the world, but I enjoyed being around my wife and kids and being able to write rhymes and just
Hey, shouts to that for real because I
yeah,
like I'm that's a rarity. Like I'm one of the only people that I know that says that I'm like, yo, like most people are like, I was just participating in a clubhouse conversation and one of the homies was just like super big on like, yo, yeah, like COVID proved that like relationships are sham and like
What?
nobody can like be in a happy relationship. And I'm like, no, how the fuck did it prove that? Like, who are you talking to? Where's your gauge? I'm like, I'm right here, literally super happy. Like, if anything, like it was an improvement. Like it bettered things. Like what? Like
Yeah.
yeah,
so it like it shouts to all of us that like it wasn't taxing and that it was like a blessing.
yeah. It was a
Well,
blessing, refreshing to be around them, and I ended up writing a lot of rhymes, man, that I'm still now trying to figure out how to like package and share with the world, because what I was doing was I saw my man Phase One. I don't know if y'all know Phase One, but he's a rapper, he's super dope. He did this video like right at the beginning when everything got shut down. And he did this video online of him basically performing remotely. So like we are on Zoom. It was musicians in different boxes, and he was rapping. And I was like, yo, that's dope, man. And I tried it with my friends. I was like, yo, let's try some, and it wasn't working. I was like, man, what are we doing? So I ended up calling Phase One. I'm like, yo, what did you do? How did you do that? And he's so gracious. You know, he had me on the phone for like an hour and 30 minutes explaining his process. And so I was like, bet. And so I ended up doing my version of that, which was different. But I took a lot of gems from what he was explaining to me. And what I did was I called it at the time the quarantine jam, right? Because it was total lockdown. And what I did was it's on like IG and YouTube and stuff, but I'm in the process of figuring out how to redistribute it. But I would ask a musician friend of mine, just one, not a whole band, just one, to send me like 60 seconds of them playing their instrument, like a loop on guitar and each one was a different instrument. So there's one featuring a guitarist, there's one featuring a bassist, there's one featuring a pianist, there's one featuring a drummer on a kit, there's one featuring a drummer on the djembe. Like each one is a different instrument, different musician. And I would take them, a video of them doing their thing, and then I would write. And it be in this season, it was super dope. Like I would write it and record it, everything in that afternoon. So they would send it to me. We were all home, my kids, my wife, and I'd be at the kitchen table, and I would write a rhyme, and then film myself, you know, performing it kind of like a music video to the instrumentation and put it out. But it's like, I think it's like 15 videos, and there's just so much because of what was going on in the world and what was going on inside of, you know, me, you know, personally. I just feel like there was so much depth in those creations, and we kind of just let them fly like you know, social media thing. But in hindsight, coming out of it later, I'm like, yo, we should really. So what I ended up doing was or what I'm in the process of doing is kind of making like a mini documentary out of it.
Okay.
Where, yeah, you have the actual performance videos, but I also had all the people that I worked with film like little, you know, themselves talking about their experience. So there's also some dialogue saying, yo, I had a son during this. My son was born, and you know what I mean? Different experiences. This kid college, like, yo, I had to graduate on Zoom. And so people talking about, these musicians talking about their experience, and then you get to see us performing it. So that was like, you know, during COVID, that's what we were working on. And yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how to repackage it and put it out, but hopefully this year that gets done.
Yeah, that's super creative. I like the way that you're able to like work through all the circumstances and just make it your own unique blend on it, right? Like it's not just regular. Like everything you've described is like we did it and then we did it one up and went in that direction with it and came up with something that other people aren't necessarily doing. And I like that.
Yeah. Thank you, man. I mean, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, how did you connect with the Vice Versus Foundation and get involved with that? Because that ultimately is how we ended up in this specific conversation.
Yep. Shout out to Vice Versus and the foundation. So I was familiar with EOW like from way back in the day. Like I had mentioned when I was, you know, much younger, and my mentor saying, yo, you got to come rhyme here. And like Vice and Zoo and all them shouting at me while I'm on stage, shouting over me and everything. That whole culture was crazy. It was intense. So like I was familiar with their camp and what they do. But I was for many years in another lane, right? Like I described, I was doing the soul, hip hop, trio, live musician vibe for a long time. And then how did I end up? Oh, so my man Oliver, y'all know Oliver, who's from Canada, is down
Littyyy.
Wait.
Oh, you're talking about Oliver.
Littyyy Bro?
Littyyy.
Yes.
Wait, which one?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know his last name, but what's his last name? He's EO Dub through and through. But he's been my man for a lot of years, and he came and he visited me, and we were having lunch or something. I forget how it came up, but he was the one who brought it to my attention. He was like, "Yo, you should do the MC challenge." And I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to do that. But he was like, nah, you should really consider it. I was like, all right, for you, I will. Cause I really, love this brother. So I came home, I told my wife, I was like, yo, babe, they're doing this MC challenge. My man told me I should get down. And she's like, all right, go for it. So that whole story was wild. So I guess this is like 2 years ago. That story was wild because up until the last minute, I wasn't committed to do it. Right. I was like, nah, I don't know, if I want to do it. It had been a long time since I was in a very competitive space as an MC. right? Because like I mentioned, all those other spaces I just described, it's a totally different vibe, right? Playing shows, rocking with the band, playing on the train. It's not competitive. It's not competing with other MCs. That energy, that aggression is not there. So it had been a long time. So like, I don't know if I want to jump into that. Long story short, I realized it was too late. They already had all the contestants. I was like, oh snap! But they, what do you call it? The wild card thing. And so I just showed up. I think I hit somebody on IG. Was like, yo, if I show up, can I get on? And it was like, yeah, you could probably get on as a wild card. And so I just showed up one night, and I just put my name on the list. And we just started getting busy. That night, what I think I took second place that night. And so I took second place. My man was there with me, and everybody was hyped, like, yo, you killed it. You should continue. And so you know how the MC Challenge works. Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but we should explain it anyway, just in case somebody doesn't know how it works.
Okay, so if you're winning, you advance, and the competition gets increasingly more difficult as you advance. And so, being that I took second place, that won me a spot as a wild card in the next competition, right? And so I go to the next joint and end up taking first place. And the MC Challenge, for those of you guys who don't know, a lot of people say is like the greatest test of the MC, the greatest of the whole MC. You gotta freestyle, pull things out of a bag. You gotta try to stay on. The DJ tries to throw you off playing different beats. You have to do different things, and you have judges, scoring your performance. Is super, super difficult and fun. So I'm like, all right. So the next one I go and I end up taking first place, and all the while, Vice Versus was like just incredible, and y'all know, like just the energy, like just putting a battery in my back. I'm like, yo, this dude is amazing,
He's a human battery.
Yeah, and so I was just feeling the love and the energy. And I remember actually that night that I took first place, when I showed up, and mind you, like I said, I wasn't plugged in for all the time. So a lot of the people that were there all knew each other, right? The contestants knew each other, the judges, everybody knew each other. I didn't know too many people that were there. But Vice he had shown me in the last joint. And then when I went to the next one, him and Pro was there, and Pro was like, "Oh, this the brother you was telling me about," and that just like brought me mad joy. Like, yo, Vice was over here telling him that this dude is coming through. That brought me a lot of joy. Like, man, that's honorable, right? So anyway, did that, and then I made it all the way to the Challenge of Champions, and that was a blast, and we did that, and I took third place in that. And it was just a lot of fun. So that's how I got plugged back in with the EO Duff and everybody. And the Challenge of Champions was beautiful too. And all of this, like I mentioned earlier, I'm a student, right? I'm a student. I'm a student, and I've been looking at this every day when I come down in my book in my space. This is Justin Bohr, the artist, right? You guys have seen this stuff, and so. The last page here, he has this quote in this picture, and it says, "I am still learning," and the quote is by Michelangelo at age 87. And so every day I look at it, I'm like, wow, that's dope. Like, I'm still learning. So when I went to the MC Challenge of Champions, I was a student. I was learning, and it was such a great experience, and it taught me a lot. Watching how the other people did their thing, shout out to Osiris Anthem and Rabbi Darkside. Osiris took first, Rabbi took second, I took third. So I learned a lot, man. It was super dope, and that's how I got connected with them. And then reconnected with them, the last time I actually saw Vice was a while after that competition. They had put together this event with an organization called Graffiti Kids, which I believe Pro is a part of running, if I'm not mistaken. And it was basically teaching young people all the elements of hip hop. MCing, DJing, breaking, graffiti. It was like a one-day event, and they invited me to be a part of the MCs who taught, you know, the art of MCing. So it was me, Vice, Osiris, Anthem, Zoo, and Baxter, and we were teaching young people as little as like little kids that were like second, third grade, and then also older like teenagers how to rhyme. And that was last time I saw Vice, and that was really meaningful for me, you know, especially coming full circle, like as I explained, working in schools, working with young people, then going to the MC Challenge, which was another lane, having to tap into that, compete, and then be able to lock arms with these brothers and do this youth work. Like for me, it was like, yo, this was amazing. So yeah, that was how I got reconnected with the.
That's dope. And so you ended up winning the grant from the
foundation. Yeah. Yep. So then I guess after that, I don't know, maybe a year after or something like that, I heard they were doing, the foundation was doing grants and everything. And it's funny because I saw in the language of it that it was geared toward artists, like not teaching artists, but artists, right? And a grant that would help kind of accelerate your career and your work and everything. But I was like, man, I think, especially being that the last time I saw Vice, we were teaching the young people the art of MCing together. Mm-hmm. I was like, I think it makes sense for me to apply anyway as a teaching artist and share, you know, about the program, the Rhyme program, Rhymes Help Young Minds Excel. And so I did that, and they were gracious, and they brought me on again at my history of being a wild card. I was like the wild card grant winner, because it was a few artists, and then I was, if I'm not mistaken, the only teaching artist who won the grant, and who was awarded the grant. And then because of that grant, you know, I was able to work with some young people in the Bronx at a studio called Bragg, Bronx Rises Against Gun Violence. And we were able to get together and write songs and record music. And, you know, so they helped to create space for me to do this work that I love and that I find to be really meaningful. So I was super grateful for that, for sure.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
Oh.
But it's also another big knowledge nugget in terms of taking advantage of opportunities, even if you don't feel like you fully qualify. And that one's for like everybody looking for a job even. Like I know for a fact that people wildly be like, psh, I'm missing this bullet point on this list of qualifications and thus I shall not apply.
Randy said something earlier where I wanted you to elaborate, but you were already speaking about your history, so I didn't want to interrupt you. But you said something about people you don't see yourself. You're the only person in the room who doesn't see yourself.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So applicable to what we're talking about now, where like you don't see yourself many times. People discount themselves and you count yourself out of things that you should totally just be counting yourself into, you know?
Absolutely.
Give yourself the benefit of the doubt.
Yep. Another good example of that was actually the night of the MC Challenge. Here I am, you know, excelling and doing well, right? And competing with cats that do this, you know, regular. Osiris had won, 3 times already by the time I met him on stage. He already was by.
Who could you, my fault, sorry to interrupt you, but you want to tell us who else participated in those challenges that you did? Like the go challenge by challenge.
Yeah, there was. So the first one was it was my man Big Red, who's super dope. It was this cat, Vinny. I don't forget his stage name, but I know his name is Vinny. It was who else was on that joint? What's my man's name? It's escaping me. This brother's name. It's escaping me. Then the second one was Iron Emperor. I think Big Red was on that one as well. Then when there was his young brother, I forget his name, but I know he's done stuff for like Lyricist Lounge and stuff like that. His name is escaping me. it'll come to me later. He was in that one, and then the challenge champions was Osiris, Rabbi Darkside, myself. It was my man Intikana. Big Red was in it, and what's the other brother's name? I think he's from Jersey. Forgive me if I'm wrong. He's like, Pop. What's his name? I don't know if you know these guys, but he's dang, I forgot his name. But
I wish we had Baxter here. He would totally
yeah, he
probably be able.
He would just roll off.
Roll off the names.
Oh man, what's his name? Anyway, I'm not gonna try to butcher it now, but all brilliant MCs, all amazing talents, all super cool beings, and so that was a fun night. But that particular night, you know, again, you don't see yourself, right? So boom, competing, end up taking third, which was like in hindsight, I'm like, yeah, that's a W. Like coming in and competing on that level and taking, you know, and ranking for me is like, that's a W. But at that night, I was like, dang, that's an L, right? And I was like, you know, tight, not at anybody else, but at myself and my own performance. And I remember walking out, even though there was mad love there, like I had a lot of friends and people there, like Homeboy saying, it was a lot of people there. But and Zoo, brought me back on stage and like, honored me and showed me love. This has been crazy. But still, I walked out like with my head down, right? Like, yo, I took an L. I got washed. I bump into this dude right outside the door that I never met before in my life. No, I'm lying. I met him before, but we didn't know each other. We just kind of was in the same space once before. We learned that later. I bump into this dude and he starts talking to me. He's like, yo, man, that was amazing. Like, that was incredible. And then he starts talking about how certain things that I had shared in the rhymes resonated with him. Things about faith, things about family, things about marriage that nobody else was talking about on stage. Yeah. Nobody. I was the only MC, and this is not no shade. This is just context. I was the only MC in any of the competitions that I was a part of that didn't curse, not once. Right, the only MC. And if you know anything about MCing, you know this is no shade. I'm just sharing context. Right?
Yeah, no, you're just.
It's easier to body somebody, right? Lyrically, when you're freestyling, they say something about like the gat, and it's easy to drop a F-bomb because it's a filler. It buys you time to think.
Mm-hmm.
You're not doing. You got a lot more words to try to figure out. So anyway, so this brother was like, "Yo, you got me thinking about faith differently. You got me thinking about God differently." He's like, "Yo, I'm dating this girl. You got me thinking about marriage differently." His brother's telling me outside the thing, and these are the things that matter to me more than anything else.
Yo,
that's
a huge win.
That's what we do this for, right?
Wow.
Like, essentially, is like for the people that are going to hear us and are going to be able to appreciate your present journey in life. You know what I mean? And be able to be like, yo, that's where I'm about to be, or that's where I want to be, you know? So
that blew me away because I'm like with my head down, I'm like, yo, so hear that, and me and my brother is still real close to this day. And that really blessed me and reminded me, like, yo, nah, sometimes you don't recognize where the W is or how it's supposed to come to fruition, but it's there. You know what I'm saying? So
I think like in music, like everything else, or like reflects life, right? So like they say, like, in losses come like lessons,
Yeah.
So like there's nothing but like great that I've ever like gotten out of losses. Like it's like in the moment you feel super down on yourself, but then like it's so much like upward mobility from that,
But it's also just like a matter of perspective, right? Because like at the end of the day, I don't know, being third at the champion thing is pretty big.
Challenge of Champions is like,
I can guarantee you one thing. I ain't getting up there and winning that shit. It's not even coming close. It's not even a little bit close. So I bet, if I was there and I came third, I'd be mad salty too. But the fact that like, the number of times that I think people can walk out and have moments like that is real different. Like not everybody can say that their words impacted people like that.
Yeah, nah, I could tell you as an MC, right? Like we're like I never participated in the MC challenge, right? Because it's different than the skill set of like battle rapping, you know? And
Yeah.
there's like you said, there's mentalities and right, like you being able to participate in the challenge and pull out of yourself the competitive MC that probably was dormant for quite some time, like
That's
that's something to be applauded. I can understand that. You know what I mean? That it's not easy to be able to turn that switch back on. You know, like part of the reason why I don't participate in the MC challenge is because I let my freestyle blade get really dull. You know what I mean? And I just let it, I just let it be. I
right,
just felt like, oh, I'll be all right. Like the
right,
amount of sharpness that it has is just enough for all the things that I need to do. You know what I mean? And
right.
so, but like to participate in the challenge, like, nah, it has to be way sharper. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And so but these are things that you know, should be applauded because it's not easy to walk out of not being in that mindset and be able to compete and participate well enough that you were able to keep on continuing in the challenge. You know what I'm saying? Like that's super
Like,
bravo.
you're on the
yeah,
podium next to Osiris Anthem, who arguably is very talented and is praised
Yeah.
by all as everybody I've ever heard who said this guy's name has basically then followed up by he's the greatest in some capacity or another of
Right.
so
One
sure
of the greatest MCs,
he's number
Lupe
one, but
Fiasco, is calling him that.
you're number 3 on a list with that guy.
yeah.
Yep.
That's good company. I ain't mad at that.
Great
That's good.
company.
Like, I
That's
was
great
And
company.
listening to you rhyme in your musics, what I heard of it, and I was like, yo, that is really precise. Like, you really, and then you also have fun shit, serious shit. It's versatile. Like, you really, it makes sense how you'd be able to compete at that level, but also, you've been rapping since you were like 8. So, like, that's almost 3 decades. That's a 3
Yeah,
decade run so far. That's like pretty fucking
yeah.
incredible.
Right on, man. Yeah, I appreciate that, man.
yeah.
It's been a blessing. It's been dope.
Super dope. So yeah, do you have anything that's coming out soon that you want to share with the people?
Yeah, man, a lot of things. One, I would, ask you guys to check out what we're doing with young people in schools and the hip hop program that I mentioned. And you could do that by visiting randymason.org/rhyme. Or you could just go to IG Rhyme NYC or follow me at Randy Mason Music, whatever. But like reach out and ask about the Rhyme program because that's really what just something that I'm really excited about. We're expanding the team for the first time, so we just onboarded I don't know 10 or so MC teaching artists, which is amazing to me. So like everything I've been doing for the past few years, like alone in rooms, like I've created, I'm working on developing those lesson plans and those curriculums and those units. So now other MC teaching artists can facilitate programs, you know what I'm saying, in other schools and everything. So that's been dope. And then musically, yeah, man, a lot of music that is out and that's coming out. I just dropped this song on my birthday. It's called Andrew's Grandson, named after my grandfather Andrew, rest in peace. The song features my big brother Wes, who I mentioned earlier, who inspired me to rhyme. And the song also features 2 of our cousins out in Chicago. So there's 4 Masons on the track, by way of 2 countries and 3 cities, right? So my brother lives in Sweden, my cousins are in Chicago, and then I'm in the Bronx. And so I'm really proud of that record. It's like a family flex, you know what I'm saying? And so it's called Grandson. We put that out last week. Got Theory Has It, cutting and scratching on it. And my man Gainsborough did the beat. Yeah, man, a couple joints. We got another, more music coming out. I think February 22nd or 23rd, got another record coming out. So yeah, just I guess hit me up and stay tuned because you know, always sharing, you know, art and putting things out, and, you know, trying to be a good steward of the gifts I've been given. You know what I'm saying? I feel like God gave me, you know, God, we all have gifts, you know what I'm saying? But I feel like, you know, the gifts that God has given me, I want to steward them well. Like I don't want to, you know, sit on them, you know. And when I say gifts, I'm talking about MCing, but I'm also talking about, you know, family and faith and all these things that I keep bringing up that I'm passionate about. Those are things that I've been exposed to and that have been super impactful in my life. And, you know, I believe like to whom much is given, much is required. And so I'm just excited about sharing those things because they've been given to me, right? Like it's a gift is forgiven. So it's like, if I can MC, I want to MC. If I could mentor young people and teach the art of MCing, I want to do that. If I could share with people about my faith and my spirituality and my walk with God, I want to do that. If I could champion, you know, marriage and like my brother said, you know, men, you know, from the hip hop culture and community honoring their wives and bigging up their wives, I want to do that. If I could, you know, if I could promote and advertise fatherhood as something that's amazing, and something that does not have to, be in conflict with music or with art, but can be, it could be a holistic kind of a life. I want to do that. You know what I'm saying? I'm probably going on a rant now, but those are the things I'm excited about.
Nah.
So, you know,
That's a great rant. Do you have a break dancer that stood out to you over time?
of all
That
time,
you're a fan of, like your favorite break dancer?
Yo, well, first I gotta say this because it's crazy that you asked me this question. I could almost cry right now because I don't think anyone's ever asked me that question. And I really do have a passion for breaking, and I love breaking. And my boy Tony, who I grew up with, who is my neighbor, he taught me how to like top rock and six step when we were little kids on the street in front of his house. And he just passed away the other day. And so, you know, the wake is on Sunday. And I was thinking about that. I'm like, yo, that's crazy. Tony taught me how to like top rock and six step, like in front of his crib on the street. And that was like the beginning of my fascination with breaking. Fast forward not fast forward, but to answer your question, that's a hard question, man. Good Lord. I would say, you know, I'll say this. I don't know if this is answers the question well, but I'll say a b-boy by the name of Quickstep from the Bronx, who's an OG actually. And the reason that I'm so amazed by his gift and his talent is not only the dance, but that he's a master and incredible at the art of beat breaking, but that he's an amazing teacher and mentor as well. And he teaches a lot of. He has a you know, like a dojo where you can go and break in the Bronx. And I spent some time with him, and he's just been super gracious. So I don't know if that's like you asked me like the most like amazing b-boy.
I mean, if those are the most amazing people to you, then that would be the correct answer to the question.
Yeah, I'm gonna go because now I'm going through like all of these like, oh my goodness, there's so many people who are crazy. I love breaking. I love like just watching and being around it. The energy is exhilarating. What drove me to say, yo, I want to learn, I want to train, because I always like play with it, whatever here and there, but I'm an MC. I'm not, you know what I'm saying? But I get so like moved by it that I'm like, yo, I gotta train because I can't keep this in all the time. Like I need to be able to just go ahead and get busy and then jump out the circle. So I'm actually gonna get back to that soon, man. Shout out to B-Boy Indio, Dynamic Rocker. Shout out to Kid Glide. Those are my people too. And they are also amazing B-Boys and amazing teachers and mentors who do great work, man. Yeah, there's a lot of B-Boys that I love. And B-Girls. Shout out to Rockefeller, you know, Mantis, and others. So yeah.
That's dope. I appreciate everything you shared with us. Honestly, shout out End of the Week for having us here because without them, this wouldn't be
Word.
a thing. And I feel like it's always appropriate to give them, their props while we are here on their very channel doing this thing.
Word.
Shout out you, Randy, for coming through and not only having such an incredible journey, but really just what you do is noble. Like, it's some noble things that you are up to. And I really just love it. It's all selfless. It's all like, yo, family first, and then let's go save the kids. I'm like,
Word.
Yeah.
noble's the right word for that. I can't think of a more apt
Yeah.
way to describe that. So I appreciate you sharing with that because it's honestly like a pretty standout thing compared to all the usual music journeys that don't tend to be so noble with it.
Yo, man,
Word.
I appreciate you guys having me on and giving me opportunity to share and to talk about these things. So Yo Dub forever, vice versa forever. Yeah, man, I'm grateful for this opportunity.
Yeah, I just also had to thank everyone watching us live wherever you're watching us. Y'all are wonderful too.
Word.
All the links will be in
Thank you.
descriptions. And make sure to follow End of the Week EODub, EODUB.com. Go there. It's the easiest place to find all their stuff. That's their main website, EODub.com. On that note, yo, it was really great to have everyone here. And it was awesome, Randy.
Facts.
Even
It
your
was a
outro was
pleasure to meet
fire.
you, Randy.
And yeah, so I got nothing else on my end. So yo, live long and prosper, everybody.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.